Hello, this is Mark Tucker with the next APL Components video for viewers of the Dabble Lab channel. In this video, we're learning about the video component. If you want to follow along in APL Ninja, look for the project link in the description. Here we go. In our project here, we have our main template and we have our root container that's taking up the whole viewport space here. And in this first child item, we've got a video component, and I just wanted to quickly show you what the bare minimum to get something going for a video is, and then we'll get into a little bit more complicated example here. So in this case, I've got just a conditional when true to show this this video player as opposed to this other video player, which we'll spend most of our time on. For a video, you need to have the height and the width set. In this case, we're going to take up the whole space. It's a video component. We have a property here saying, are we going to autoplay this video or not? So right now it's set to false, so nothing happens. Something else is going to need to start the video, or we can just set it off to true here. So at this point, the video is going. We have a component property here on the component for audio track. We'll look at that when we get into the properties. And just like the image, then we have a scale property for best fit or best fill. This video is going to be a little bit jaggy because I'm recording a video inside of a video at high definition. But there is a source property, and in this case we're using this repeat track. The easiest way to set the source property is just with a single string, which is the URL of the MP4 video file. In this case, we have a property called payload.repeatTrack. If we go to the data property here, repeat track is an object. It has a URL property, which is going to give us the URL of this video. And as you can see here, it's an MP4. And in this case, it's got repeat count set to -1. So a repeat, which means that it was just going to keep playing indefinitely. When it gets to the end of this 30-second video, it's going to start again and just keep playing. Repeat count 0 is just going to play the video once. Repeat count 1 is going to play the video and then repeat it once, and so on. So that just gives you a quick summary, like really easy, quick. You could get a video in your project. It doesn't have to be full screen. You don't have to do video controls. You could think of use this for a game. So for example, if you're in space and you want to have a star-filled, or you're going to warp or something, you might have overlaid over top of the video what would look like the spaceship, and then through the windows of the spaceship you could see the video playing. There's lots of different things that you can do. You could conceivably have multiple videos playing at the same time for different things. So just use your imagination on how you want to use this video component. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to false here. So that's not going to show anymore. So we're going to spend most of our time on this configuration here, where we have the video. We have a bar here for what's the current track of the video playing. We have a video bar, which is how many seconds into the video, of how many total time we have, and your typical play, pause, rewind, and adding and subtracting 10 seconds to the time. And then this is like a little debug item down here. So let's go to the very beginning. We've got some Alexa styles imported in. This resource, we have a nav color. This, if you remember from our last one, our pager example, this is the same resource and styles that we had for that. So we're just reusing those for that here. Well, we've got a separate component for this track bar here and this video bar here. But if we look at the main video player, then it's type video. It's taking 100% of the height, but it's allowed to shrink. It's going to take just 70% of the width, so there's some spacing on either side. In this case, the audio play is set to false, and our source property is set to payload.tracks. So in this case, In our data file, we have a tracks array, and it's got 3 objects with 3 different videos in it. And this will be a good time. Let's jump over to the properties of the video component. So if you look at the audio track, there's 3 different options: foreground, background, or none. In our case, we're just saying we want the video, we don't want any audio that might be on that in that MP4 file, so we set it to none. But foreground is going to play it in the foreground, but then if there's some text to speech, then it's going to interrupt, and it'll behave differently if the audio track is background. So look at that details when so understand for your case how that might work. We already talked about autoplay. There's a whole number of events here: on play, on pause, on end, on time update, on track update, on track ready, on track fail, and we'll talk about that. Scale, just like image, best fill, best fit, and then your source URL, your string or your array. Let's dive into source a little bit more. So you could have a source which is just a single string. You can have a source which is an array of 1 or more strings, and if there's multiple strings, then there's multiple tracks or videos to play. If you've got an object, then it has to have a URL property. That's how it's going to know where the video is. Or you can have an array of objects, and which is the case which we have. And the reason why I did that is just so you could see all the various different properties. So if you have an object representing each of the different videos, so here's the URL, then you can have additional things like duration. How long should this video clip play? Should I repeat the count? So the only way that you're going to get repeat is if you have an object that represents the video as opposed to just a string. And offset, so how far into the video do you want to start playing? So those are all things that you get by specifying the different properties here, and that's what we've specified here. We're not really using anything. We've just defined them if they're set to 0 in most cases or not there, then they're the same. So this is take up the whole time, start at the very beginning, don't repeat. In this case, we've got this repeat set to 1. All right, so that's the property of the data that is supplying our video player here. And let's go ahead and take a look at these events. So when something happens to the video itself, it's going to send off some different events, and we can do things with it. And if we go back here, it's important to note, so when you get an event, then this shows you what values, additional values you're going to be able to get inside the event. So when you're doing a play, you'll be able to know that you're on track 1 of 3, for example, and that the current time into the video is like 3 seconds in of a 30-second video, or if the current state is paused, or if the video has ended or not. And each of these different events, so like when you get to pause, very similar to play, except for the pause is going to come out to be true. When you get down to the end, when you've watched your one video or your multiple videos, then you'll get this ended equals true. And it's got some of these same information. But if, for example, it's a track failed, which means you couldn't read the video URL or something, then there's less properties here in this event. Same thing with track ready. It's just what track you're on. But there can be an onTrackUpdate, which would get more information as far as duration and things like that. So those are the different events that we get here. So why don't we go ahead and look at, there's 2 media commands that have to do with the video player as well. Play media allows you to specify the ID of the video player component and then change the source URL to something else. We're not going to use that. In our case, we're going to spend our time using this ControlMedia. So there is a UI to controlling media, and you can define your own UI, or there's actually a component that you can use that's provided by Amazon to go ahead and do that control stuff for you. But you might have something else, like if I hit something on the screen like a button, and it may not even look like a standard player, you might want the video to play. So you've got a lot of control and flexibility over how you control the video, but that all happens through this ControlMedia command. So if you go down here, these are the different commands. So just think of like when you're playing a video, you can usually play it or pause it or go to the next track or the previous track, or rewind the video to the very beginning of the current track, seek to a specific position inside the video, or set a specific track index. So all those things you just specify as part of the command. So you say, oh, I want to do the ControlMedia command. I want to point it to my video player, and this is the command I want to execute. In some cases, like in the case of seek, you're specifying how far into the video you want to go. So there's there's a value property you'll set to the number of milliseconds, and setting a track to a specific index, you'll set it to a certain index. So those are the only two that use this additional value property on the command. So let's jump right into the code here and take a look what happens. So when we play a video, it's not going to start playing because we have autoplay to set defaults, but it knows what the tracks are because we've set the source property. But whenever something happens and we start to play, what we're going to do is we're going to set the value of the debug text component. So this is that component right here. It's just a text component that has the ID of debug text. And so we're going to set the text property to the string onPlay. So this is just going to kind of let us know when we're flipping back and forth between different events. So nothing else is going to happen, but when the video starts to play, then the onPlay event's going to fire, and we're going to update the text here for that. Similarly, when we pause, then we're going to set onPause, set this value to onPause. When things get done onEnd, we're going to set the debug text to onEnd. And when the track is ready, we're going to do that, set this debug to onTrackReady. But we're also going to send a command to the track bar here. And we're going to set the current track to whatever the event is telling us the current track is +1. So that's where we're going to get this 1 value right here. And we're also going to set the track bar total tracks to the number of tracks that are in our data payload. So that's right there. So when the onTrackReady, and the reason why we have to do that is because this total tracks value isn't available as part of the onTrackReady event. But that's how we're going to set this value here to know which track we're on. So onTrackUpdate, so when we've actually updated the track, we're going to go ahead and set the debug text down here to onTrackUpdate. And we're going to set the current track and the total tracks here to the value that's part of the event. So we can always keep track of which track we're on. And then on OnTrackFail, if there's some sort of an error, we're going to just report that there's an error here. And onTimeUpdate is going to happen whenever the video is playing. And it's not at certain times, it's not like every second, it's just at certain intervals. It's going to update, call onTimeUpdate, and we'll be able to set these values. So we're going to set the video progress and the video total, so video progress, video total, based on the current time and the total duration of the current video that we're on. So let's just give a quick example here. We've got all these wired up, and so for example, if we were to come in here to this first video and we would say, oh, let's change this to an invalid URL. Oh, that was more ambitious than I thought. Here we go. There we go. See, it says onTrackFail because it wasn't a valid URL, so it initiated that onTrackFail. Let's see, when we refresh this, notice how this changes onPlay, onTrackReady. So now it's ready to play the first one. Let's go ahead and just look at this control. So we've got one video here, and if we were to start to play the video, here we go, come on. Let's do, there we go. Not sure what's off there. There we go, on play. So we played this, it's on play. It's figuring out that it's 3 seconds into a 30-second video. It's a little bit choppy. We can go ahead and pause it. So we can see the on pause here. We can rewind it. So that's going to set this back to the very beginning. So now we're at the very beginning. If we wanted to add 10 seconds onto that, we can, and we can start playing. We can even skip ahead 10 more seconds while it's playing. Come on. There we go. At the end of this video, it's going to go ahead and load the next video. So now we're on track 2 of 3. If we were to let this play all the way through, it's going to get down to the end of this video, flip over automatically to the next track, keep going, and you'll notice how these different commands are changing as we're going through this. When it gets all the way done, we're going to get an onEnd here. On pause, on play. Oh, because we played it a second time. That's right, we had that last one repeat count set to 1, so it's going to play one more time, at which point it's finally done, and now we get the onEnd. So that's how that all these components work, but we can do previous here. It's going to take us to the previous track, to the next track. So that's how these controls work. So let's just really quickly look at them. They're all pretty much going to be the same. They're either just enclosed in a track bar or video bar, but we've got some parameters that we're passing in, and we already looked at how the events were calling this component, passing parameters in. But in the end, we've got a touch wrapper for like previous, and so here is where we see when we press that previous button here, then it's going to call a ControlMedia property on this video player ID that we've passed in, which represents this video here, and give it the previous command. Same thing here, we're going to give it the next command, so that's how these ones work. If we look at the video bar, it's the same thing. Here's the ID of the video player, the video progress, and the total progress, which is the values for here. And as we go through each of these different controls, we have a touch wrapper for play. We're just doing a ControlMedia, sending it the play command. Pause, we're sending the pause command. Rewind, the rewind commands, minus 10 seconds, we're doing a seek, minus 10,000 milliseconds. And the same thing with plus 10 seconds, we're doing a seek. So that's all there is to controlling the video. And you've got yourself a control. Now there is a control built in. It's in a different spot here. If we were to look at these different responsive components, there is something called a transport controls, which gives you, some of the controls down here. Let's see if there's, so you can have your play pause here, and you can control the secondary left and secondary right buttons. So you can do minus 10 seconds, plus 10 seconds. You can do it next track, previous track. So there's some things that you can control, and you can use this component instead of the built in, kind of the hand one that we wired up. So in this episode, we learned about the video component, events such as onPlay, onPause, onTrackUpdate, and onTimeUpdate, and the ControlMedia command. We also learned the different ways we can specify video sources. So in the next video, we'll look at our last component of the base components that are built into APL, the edit text component. I hope this video was helpful. Please let me know with a like or a share. Thank you for watching.